Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Okay. Todd Zolecki joins us. Todd, first of all, it's always great to talk baseball no matter any time of the year. We're going to talk some now. First of all, the key is, how have you been?
Oh, I've been good. I got down here last Tuesday, and today, or yesterday, I should say, was the first full squad workout. So they're in full swing right now, and on Saturday there will be Grapefruit League baseball.
And that's great because it's about time we get rolling again with all. First of all, how warm is it there?
Well, it's all relative, of course. It's probably in the 60s today. It's not your typical Florida day. The last 2 days have been a little rainy. I think it's going to start warming up in the next few days. Again, no complaints. The sun is out. I'm not wearing a jacket. You know, there's no threat of snow, anything like that. So it's great. It's great.
All right. Is there anybody that is going to be slow out of the gate because they're either rehabbing something or they're not quite ready to go yet?
Nobody really of note. Everybody is healthy. Nobody is behind schedule. You know, so there's not really that nagging injury type of situation. You know, so which is obviously great news, especially on the pitching side. You know, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, and Christopher Sanchez. That's going to be your starting five. Your five-man rotation. All of them are healthy. Everybody that's competing, it's either a lock for the bullpen or is competing for a bullpen job, is healthy. And, of course, your starting nine in the lineup are all healthy. And that's a big reason why I think the Phillies believe that they will, for the first time in a long time, get off to a hot start and, maybe, try to take down the Braves in the National League East.
All right. Is there any spot that you look at on the 26-man roster when it's all said and done that would be competitive spots? Would there be 3, 4 competitive spots, 2, 5? What would it be?
I think there's 3. I think there's 3 jobs up for grabs. And, yes, I would say 3, right? So you talk about the bench. Garrett Stubbs is going to be the backup catcher. Edmundo Sosa is out of options. So right now I would say I'd be very, very surprised if he does not make the team. And then, of course, you have Whit Merrefield, who they just signed to the 1-year, $8 million deal. He's going to be the super utility player. He's going to play some left field. He's going to play some second base. He could play some third base, first base, possibly center field, possibly some shortstop if needed. So that basically leaves one bench job. And right now I think the favorite for that would probably be Jake Cave. You know, he hits left-handed. I think they want a left-handed bat off the bench. They would like that. But, you have other guys in camp. You have Christian Pache, you have Derek Hall, you have Wes Wilson that could possibly compete for that bench job. But I think Jake Cave is probably the favorite at this point. And then, the other jobs up for grab, there's probably 2 bullpen jobs. One of them is going to be a long man. So you're talking about Dylan Covey, Connor Brogdon, Nick Nelson, somebody like that, and then one other bullpen job, some sort of 1-inning, 2-inning guy, and again that could be Brogdon, that could be Covey, that could be Nick Nelson, some of those guys in camp that could compete for that spot.
The Whit Merrefield signing was, I thought, a great signing for Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, this guy is a veteran, been around the block, has been an all-star, has led the league in a couple of categories, including stolen bases. He could have been a starting second baseman someplace else, yet he chose Philadelphia because he wants to win. How invaluable is that attitude, and what can he mean to a 162-game schedule?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable. I think that he is somebody that they needed in that you want to have some depth there you want to have a veteran presence if you can on the bench, somebody that you feel comfortable putting out there and playing. Say for instance, Brandon Marsh gets hurt. Now you feel pretty good about who your left fielder is for the foreseeable future. Say if Bryson Stott is really struggling, now you feel like, hey, well, we have a good option against left-handed pitching to give Bryson Stott a break. I don't think the Phillies are expecting either of that. They want Stott to play almost every day. They want Marsh to play almost every day. But on a team that's trying to win the World Series, you want your depth to be as strong as you possibly can, because injuries always injuries happen. Another example, say Johan Rojas really struggles this season. They go, we have to send him back down to AAA. Now you send him down to AAA. Now you move Brandon Marsh over to center field, and now you feel pretty good about who's your left fielder in Whit Merrefield. So I think that makes the team a lot better. Bryce Harper had an interesting quote the other day. He said, "I don't think he's scared, which will be really good for us." I asked Whit what he thought Bryce might have meant by that, and he says, "Well, I think it means that I just, I'm ready for the moment. I want that moment. Mm-hmm. I want to be in those big situations." Which sounds like something that a guy who's been in the big leagues for 7-8 years would say. I think that experience can be big in some big spots, and who knows if it actually manifests into reality. But I think the Phillies right now, they imagine a big game in September or in October, and they have to go to their bench for some reason, and now they go, "Wow, thank goodness we have Whit Merrefield to step into the batter's box and maybe win a game for us."
Johan Rojas is, in my opinion, an elite defender. In other words, he's 180 of Kyle Schwarber. All right, but he's an elite defender out there. When you watch him at the plate, what can make him serviceable enough at the plate where his defense can pay off and he doesn't get sent down?
I think for him, it's, try to shorten up his swing a little bit, not chase as much. And I made this point to somebody recently in terms of, what kind of production do you need from Johan Rojas? Certainly he can't hit like he hit in the postseason last year. He was 4 for 43 with, 1 walk and 15 strikeouts. He also doesn't need to hit like he hit in the regular season last year. He hit 300, 771 OPS. Say, for instance, Johan Rojas hits 225 with a 650 OPS. Mm-hmm. By most standards, that's not very good, right? I mean, that's not a very good offensive player. But he is so elite defensively that you can live with that. And I go back to 2008. Charlie Manuel had Carlos Ruiz hitting 8th or 9th for most of the season, and Carlos Ruiz barely hit 200 that year. He might have hit 215. Right. And reporters were constantly asking Charlie Manuel, "Charlie, how much longer can you keep going with Carlos Ruiz as your 9-hole hitter?" And finally, Charlie said, "Listen, if we're relying on our 9-hole hitter to win the World Series, then we've got no chance anyway, because the other 8 guys in the lineup should be able to produce enough that we can survive with Carlos Ruiz." And I feel the same way about Johan Rojas. They have 8 other guys in that lineup that should be able to produce enough where you can get by with a below-average offensive player in Johan Rojas, if indeed that is what he is.
When you talk to the pitching staff, what do they think of Rojas, and what does he mean to them as a pitching staff?
He means everything to them. They love him. They love him in center field. But more than anything, they love Rojas in center field and Brandon Marsh in left field. And those two in the outfield are so good defensively. Yep. I think you could see I shouldn't say a big drop in ERA, but I think you could see a lower ERAs from guys like Zach Wheeler. I can tell you, Zach Wheeler's ERA would have really benefited last year from having Marsh in left and Rojas in center field for an entire year. There are a lot of games where I saw a lot of balls fall in the left field down the line and in the gap that simply would not have fallen for hits. Will not fall for hits this season. Those two guys are so good defensively.
Okay, I've always used this as an example, but when the Yankees had Tino Martinez at first base and Mark Teixeira at first base, it covered up a multitude of sins from an infield that included Robinson Cano, Derek Jeter, and Alex Rodriguez. Because the Yankee infield, when they weren't out there, they were good, but not nowhere near being great. But the first baseman made a big difference. What do you see now from Bryce Harper, who's now going into a full season, really a second season of playing that spot? What kind of first baseman is he? He's not Teixeira, I know that, but.
Right. I think he's going to be above average, and it has the potential to be much better than above average. You talk to Bobby Dickerson. He's the Phillies infield coach, and Bobby is legit one of the best infield coaches in the business, and he thinks that Bryce Harper could win a Gold Glove one day. And I do know this about Bryce. He would not be playing first base if he didn't think he could do it really, really well. In other words, he knows he's a good. He knows he's an at least an average, sometimes above average right fielder. If he thought he was going to embarrass himself at first base, if he didn't think he could be great at first base, I don't think he would be playing that position. So I think Bryce really believes that he can do it. I think we saw, the last 2 months of the season that Bryce can play a good defensive first base. And again, possibly better than that. Now he's going to have his first full spring of actually working there. He's healthy. He's got experience at that position. And, we just talked about Marsh in left and Rojas in center. The Phillies are also very high in their defense this year because they have Bryce Harper at first base. So they think, and I'm not saying they think all these guys are Gold Glove winners, but they can close their eyes and they can see JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, all being nominated as Gold Glove finalists at the end of the season. Not saying it will happen. Who knows what happens? I'm just saying they look at those guys as Gold Glove caliber players, and they see a potential bounce back for somebody like Trey Turner as well.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Harper at the plate. A year ago, here he is coming off the rotator cuff. I thought what he did at Todd last season was amazing. Amazing what he did. Just to get back in there and just to swing a bat. How different does he even look right now compared to a year ago? Because he is now 14, 15 months removed.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that power come back for sure. He had that big power gap, power drought, I should say, soon after he came back. So I think the powers, you're going to see consistent power from him. I think he's excited that he's coming into camp healthy. He hasn't played a full season in a few years because of, he broke his thumb getting hit by a pitch. And, last year, of course, the surgery, off-season Tommy John surgery. So, I think he's excited for just being healthy coming into camp, knowing where he's going to play coming into camp. And so I would expect another big year from him. Talk about a guy who has lived up to the hype. You give a guy $330 million, and he really has delivered on all aspects. And he's got a long way to go.
And he's beloved in the city because he's done exactly that, and he plays the way the city wants to play. This guy is all out every single time. He's a guy that you want to take a bunch of little leaguers, rack up the video, and say, this is how hard you should play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. With emotion, with intensity, he loves being in that moment. I just talked earlier about Whit Merrefield. Bryce is the same guy, times a billion. He loves to be in a big spot and come through in a big moment. And this is somebody who really loves playing in Philadelphia, and he's backed it up. He's backed it up with his performance.
It's great to talk with you. Enjoy the 60s weather. Okay.
Hopefully it starts warming up soon.
Yeah, I hope so, because I don't need you out there in the jacket. I want you in a golf shirt, comfortable, the whole deal.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the scoreboard right now. It's 66 right now. Hopefully you start hitting some 70s soon.
Okay, just so you know, my 2 basketball road trips for Penn State next week, I've got to go to Iowa City and Minneapolis.
Oh, there you go. I went to the University of Minnesota, so I feel your pain.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate you. Look forward to the next conversation. Great as always.
All right, take care. Anytime.
All right, we'll wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors.